Many blessings, family. This is going to be the English version of the old Oyeku Moshe, and Kuba we say Oyeku Pakoshe. This is associated basically with the idea that every soul has the opportunity to reincarnate and correct their previous lives, and for them to complete their mission that they had to do in their previous lifetime. Also, this is the Odu where people that have this in their hand, if Ifa Odu, tend to have a tendency of seeing the dead in their dreams or ancestors. A lot of the abilities they have. Also, they have to be very serious in feeding the Ori, being in tune with the advice of the Odu, because unfortunately, they can be very pessimistic or even think of negative thoughts like suicidal thinking and things like that. That's like similar to the illnesses, negative illnesses associated with Odu Ido Someyi, Ogunda Otura, and other Odus. So they have to be very, in tune with that. This represents a great balance to not desire impossible things that are logical and reasonable. Also, the taboos for a person that has this Odu in their lifetime is to be very selective when visiting grave sites, hospitals, places that lack life force energy because they get drained so much. This is where the person has to be very careful of being associated with people that are very jealous of their prosperity or victory, success, to separate themselves from those type of people, because that will push them back a lot. This is related to a traditional story where the gentleman worked under his father's business, who was an iron worker or blacksmith, and also worked with horses. He decided to move away from his family's home and met a lady friend who was a very nice friend, but there came a moment when she began to disrespect him. He decided to separate himself from her, and then later on in life he met a different woman whom he decided to marry. Once the original friend discovered this, she was very jealous and very upset, and did like a curse on him. This curse did not manifest anytime soon, but it began to see signs of this stuff when he was on his second child that he had with his wife, where there was like complications going on. They consulted with Oromila, and it was traced to this person doing this cursing. So they did it both to neutralize and remove all that negativity, but it just talks about where the person has to be very conscientious that even a person talking bad about somebody is not good, right? So that's why they're both important to neutralize that, and they will not be stagnated at all, or they can neutralize adversities in life. Also, this teaches us to never underestimate a person's ability to heal you, no matter how they look like. This is related to the story of Olokun, the King of Kings, in terms of the physical, masculine aspect of Olokun from Egbado, Africa, because we also have an Olokun who was a feminine from another part of Africa. Both Olokun versions came to Cuba, but this is the male Ifa, or the male version of Olokun, who was sick, and listen to this story, and all the knowledgeable doctors were not able to heal him. Oromila was an elderly man dressed in poor clothing and decided to present himself to heal Olokun, and people shunned him and says you cannot, but Olokun desperately needed any kind of help. He decided to give him an opportunity, and so the opportunity was granted, and Oromila healed Olokun. It grew. There was animosity that grew out of that because the doctors were not able to heal it, and Oromila made them look bad. So Olokun was not aware of this. In gratitude, he invited Oromila for a festivity, but Oromila did not present himself, because in the reading it said that in that invitation the doctors were going to try to harm him or do something negative or make him disappear. Olokun discovered this later on, fired the doctors, and hired Oromila as a main healer, and also was titled the King of many Orishas, given that title because he demonstrated humility, he demonstrated respect. This is the Odu where it represents the creation of the family, where Elegba, Eshu, and Oromila arrived to a town. It was vacant, there was no one there, and Olofin's guidance led Elegba to discover two different women from different villages, where they consensually agreed to create humanity. It's like an Adam and Eve story, and the population grew. So Oyekun Pakoshe has a lot of strong family values, but the negative thing about this, in terms of the woman or man, do not entertain extramarital affairs, because then it could be a very tragic conclusion of this, also in this Odu, it says that as you take care of yourself, so your health will be. It talks about proximity of matrimony. If the person doesn't have a relationship, it can, but it could be egos clashing. This is why Ori on both ends has to be appeased, refreshed. This represents the vehicle, the undertaker, also those vehicles that people use in funerary services. This has to do a lot with the dead, with the egun. For the man who is sworn in Oro, he has to have a very strong connection. Also feed his male ancestors if he's a priest. If the person is a priest or priestess with this Odu already, then it recommends because to them to give honor to those Oshas via Shango, who's offers sugar cane with other materials. Agayu or Batala with Ori, Efun, and sugar cane to all the Rishas. Also, if the person is a priest of the Risha and have this Odu, then they graduate to higher offerings that's given to, respectively, to the Oshas and left at its destination. For example, Egele is offered to Obatala and then left at the mountain. Yele offered to Agayu, left at the palm tree. Things like that. But different offerings can be given to the Orishas. Also, this talks about where the person's tongue, we mentioned before, could, from other people, could push the person's progress. And then Bo's done to neutralize that. For example, in this story, it talked about a great king who catered to his village, but there was this guy who was asiwere or crazy and would talk bad about the king for no apparent reason. So bad that it was pushing him back, and it was very disrespectful in public, someone talking bad about the king like that. So Ifa recommended him to do an ebo, the Babalao did an ebo with broken pottery vessels and things that were broken and other offerings. It was left at the forest where the crazy man was at. And when the crazy man saw it, he began to talk about this offering and what's in it and what happened and trying to figure it out. And it led to the point where he talked about it so much, he forgot the king's name and began to only talk about the offering. So basically the end result was the king should not be talked about again. The same, this ebo works for that. There's different types of ebos that can be utilized outside of this old group, but it ultimately has to market. In our tradition, we use the cow tongue a lot at the saber tree, Araba with the red, and Oya has her own system of how to resolve that too. Every Orisha has their own way, Elikba, Wu, many Orishas, Ode, and all that. But also, what I want to say as well, this is the path where even death itself hunted for the divine source, worked for the divine source, but Oyekun Pakoshe is very interesting because this is an Odu that we place in the Itutu ceremony in the funerary services of a priest or priestess that has transitioned, a Babalao who is the one giving the services to assure that the priests or priestesses make it to heaven, because based on the Odio Topon, there are 7 to 9 different heavens, and we believe in heaven as well. So this Odu is utilized by us in sacred ceremonies to help the soul navigate to heaven, because this Odu represents deceased relatives, also friends. Mafelo Fun Osun, not to be confused with Osun, meaning the goddess of love, but more so Osun, O-Z-U-N, which is the staff of Odudua, also is represented by this Odu in the Afro-Cuban body corpus of Ifa. But in general, this is what I have to say about the Odu. There's a lot, but I'm just trying to tackle a little bit per Odu as we go along with the rest. But many blessings to all of you. Thank you for listening. Asheburu, Asheburu, to Ibangesho.